Welcome to our second class in this series, Your Pain-Free Back. There's many different ways for you to engage with these lessons, and they're all good. Some of you do them in the morning and tell me that the lessons invigorate you and remind you of the first time you did the lesson. And other people do them before bed and say that the lessons help them to sleep. Some people do the lessons every day, and other people have less time and aren't able to do them as often. It's all good. And I think in an ideal world, it would be good to do each lesson several times and to repeat each new lesson that we do a few times. You'll find that every time you do a lesson, it will be different. It will be interesting in different ways. And you'll find that from some lessons, you derive much more benefit than other lessons. And those lessons I would keep around and I would repeat as often as you can. This lessons are organized as in a program. There's an order to the lessons that I've created, and I hope that you can use the lessons as soon as you feel that you're getting into trouble. And I think that you don't need to endure the back pain that you've had, and you don't need to allow it to get worse. And you'll find, I believe, that we could make a distinction about different kinds of learning that are happening. For example, there's the learning that's happening during the lesson, which is more obvious. You feel the difference. There's also the learning that happens after the lesson, say in the hours after a lesson or in the days after doing a lesson. And there's also the learning that happens in each lesson in relationship to another lesson. So the learning from one lesson to the next. Now, a fundamental idea in what we are doing in this process is that our brain is made for learning. Our brain is made for change. And that our brain is attracted to learning new ways of moving that feel better, that serve you better. Your brain is on your side, and your brain can help you to improve. So I'm suggesting that as the days go on, as you do the lessons in this class series, that you will look out for the small and the large incremental improvements. Maybe you have less pain for a few minutes or a few hours, less each day. Each degree of improvement, however small it may seem to you, is extremely important, because in the process, if we add up all of those degrees of improvement, ultimately we find ourselves living a life with less pain, a more comfortable life, and a life in which we have the tools to help ourselves. Okay, I want to now move to the content of today's lesson. Last week, I introduced to you the idea that there is an important and deeply biological relationship between the powerful muscles of our back and the muscles of our front. And we talked about how back pain often occurs when this relationship becomes disturbed or disorganized. And most frequently that happens because of excessive contraction of the abdominal muscles, and that inhibits the back muscles from being able to work easily and properly. So in today's lesson, we're going to build on this idea. And you'll see just in this hour together, that as we reestablish, and I say reestablish because I believe that your brain, your nervous system has had the experience of living without back pain, and that those connections are still there in our brain. So as we reestablish a healthier, better organized reciprocal relationship between the muscles of our back and front, our spine, and especially the discs between our vertebrae will become less compressed, and we'll find our spine and our whole self feeling lighter and longer. I just want to remind you that if you do have back pain today, or if you've had it recently, you must do everything you can do to please avoid any discomfort, not just pain, but to avoid discomfort. Your improvement is going to arise out of a context of moving in a way that's easy and comfortable, reminding your brain, you could say, of how to move comfortably and easy. So you need to take responsibility for yourself. I can't in that sense, but you need to take responsibility for only doing what's comfortable and keeping the movements small, really not using the people you see on the screen as a basis of comparison, but using yourself as a guide. So just remember, do the movement slowly, only do what's comfortable, and make each movement small and pause between each movement. So I'll be reminding you of these as we go along, but this is the way that we create the conditions for communicating with our nervous system, with provoking the attention of our brain. Today's lesson is going to be done mostly lying on our side. And I'm going to be mentioning a couple of anatomical points. One will be your pubic bone, and your pubic bone is the place in front where the two sides of your pelvis join in front. In childbirth, it gets very lax and separates. It's not bone connecting to bone. There's soft tissue, cartilage there that has a little bit of give in it. The point of joining is called the pubis symphysis. I'm going to ask you to bring your attention to that point. And then the other place from behind the pelvis will be your coccyx, otherwise called the tailbone. And that coccyx, the tailbone, is connected to what's called the sacrum, which is the bony plate from behind where the two sides of the pelvis join. So you can imagine if you were to move the tailbone down, then the sacrum would move down. And of course, it's connected to the spine as well. All right, we're going to do the lesson lying on the side, and I'd like to show you a couple of illustrations that I think will be helpful for you. So if you have trouble lying on your side, you can do the lesson sitting. Peggy will be demonstrating the lesson sitting. The other thing is that if you really can't lie on the floor, you could do the lesson lying in bed. If you're lying on the floor, I'm going to ask you to lie with your left ear on your left arm. Very simple. You can see the knees are drawn up toward the pelvis, and the fingers of the hand that's standing are pointed more or less upwards, and the arm that the head is lying upon, the palm is facing the ceiling. Now, not everyone can do that. And so if that's difficult for you, For example, some may have had shoulder injuries and they find they can't really bring their arm up that high. Well, then you can put a little pillow, a small pillow under your head that doesn't raise your head so much that you can see how the angle of this person's shoulder to their ear, it's very close, the neck is bent, the chest is bent, etc. So we want the head to be more or less parallel to the floor, as it would be if I were lying my head on my arm. So I hope those were useful and clear, and let's set about on our journey together. Okay, so just take a moment lying on your back, your legs long, if that's comfortable for you. And just sense and feel the movement of your breath. You can feel the air coming in your nostrils. You can feel your lower abdomen rising a little bit. Just observe from the back of your head down your neck, the length of your spine, but go very slowly, beginning with your upper vertebra, the upper vertebra of your neck, and going downwards, the middle of your back, and your lower back. Feel, is one side of your lower back lying closer to the floor or more away from the floor? Does one side of your pelvis feel as if it's more in contact or heavier on the floor than the other side? We're just making these very simple distinctions. We're not trying to work with our analytical mind, our analytical abilities during the lesson, but our ability to make sensory and kinesthetic distinctions. Sensing, feeling yourself, but in a very basic, simple way. Now, please take your time and lie on your left side. So that means your left ear is lying on your left arm. Draw up your knees so they're more or less perpendicular to your pelvis. And your right hand is standing on the floor. Your forearm is perpendicular to the floor. Your elbow is toward the ceiling. All the movements that we're going to do today are going to be simple and small. We're making them simple and small so that we are able to pay attention to ourselves from the interiority of ourselves rather than how big a movement am I making. So now very slowly, as you exhale, please bring your head down a little bit. So you lift your head just a tiny bit away from your arm, and you keep your head parallel to the floor, and you just take your head a little closer to your knees. And then you come back and you rest for a moment, and then you do that again. So I'll repeat. As you exhale, you lift your head a little bit away from your arm, and then you bring your head down. Your head doesn't turn right and doesn't turn left. And you bring your head down in such a way that you feel you can say, my forehead is closer to my right knee, and then go back. All right. That's simple enough. And now as you do that, I'd like you simply to feel that as you bring your head down, something changes in your back. The shape of your back, you could say, changes a little. That your upper back gets a little round. You see if you can feel that. That it doesn't mean that I'm asking you to do something differently. I'm simply asking you to use your attention to sense yourself, to become aware of that of which you were not aware. And that is that your back gets a little round and your chest gets a little flat. It moves down a little bit. There's no effort necessary. Of course, your head is heavy, as is all of our heads. And so you do feel that there is some resistance, and you just make a small movement. And as soon as that resistance increases, you do less. Now, do that a couple of times, sticking your tongue, the tip of your tongue, out of your mouth and down towards your right knee. Take your head down and you stick your tongue out and you feel, is that different? When you stick your tongue out like that, does your head go down the tiniest bit more? Maybe. Maybe. Feel what happens if you think of sticking your tongue up towards your nose. Your whole back is organized differently. You feel that? If you think of sticking your tongue towards your nose, what happens to the movement of your head? Would you say, oh, that's more difficult? Or would you say, oh, I can bring my head down more? And now stick your tongue down towards your chin. And you find, oh, how is it that just that little movement of my tongue is making such a difference throughout my whole self? It's interesting, isn't it? I find it interesting. And there are people, I see people all the time who have the tip of their tongue pushed up against the roof of their mouth. How does that influence their back? Okay. Just rest with your left ear on your left arm. And now, slowly, think of lifting your right leg the tiniest bit away from your left leg, just like you were lifting the head a tiny bit, and bring your right knee toward your head. And then you go back and you rest again. You only do what's easy. We're not interested whatsoever and how big a movement we make. Some of you have had acute issues with your back. Some of you maybe have no history of back pain. But either way, the improvement will have nothing to do with how much you bring the leg up. And you'll see even those who have never had back pain will improve, because all of us are disorganized in some way or other. Remember, so the leg remains parallel to the floor. Now, see if you can feel that something changes in your pelvis and your abdomen when you bring the knee up. That when you bring the knee up slowly, so that you have the time to observe yourself, when you bring your right knee up slowly, see if you can feel that that bone that I was trying to bring to your attention, your pubic bone, that your pubic bone comes tilts a little bit up towards your head, because your lower back is getting a tiny bit more rounder. Let's go slowly. Exhale as you bring your right leg up, and see if you can allow your lower back to become a little rounder. Now, if you were to use your powers of extrasensory perception, feel, does anything happen in your neck when you bring your right leg up? Does anything happen in your eyes? There's so much that happens that we're not aware of. And yet you'll see that when we do become aware and we know ourselves in that way that we didn't a few minutes ago, that's when the brain begins to make changes and create new patterns. Can you feel that your chin actually moves a little bit when you bring your right leg up? Not extraordinary? You're not intending to bring your head down, but your head comes down. All right, please rest again. And now slowly put those two movements that we've been doing together. That is, you bring your head down and you bring your right leg up. So your right knee comes a little closer to your head and your head comes a little closer to your knee. This can be very small so that you can feel that as you allow your chest to become softer, as you allow your chest to get round, your whole torso to get round, it all becomes a little lighter. It's as if your head coming down helps your right leg to be lighter, and your right leg coming up helps your head to be lighter. All right. I think we should stop and rest on our back. Now, That was whatever it was, 10 minutes or so, maybe a little more, 12 minutes. Does something feel different about the right side of yourself compared to the left side of yourself? Are you leaning more towards one side than the other? Are you tilted more towards one side? And what about the right side of your lower back compared to the left side of your lower back? And please take your time, lie on your right side in the same way with your right ear on your right arm is long. And draw up your knees. Stand your left hand with your fingers pointed more or less upwards. Now, doing even less than we did on the other side, go ahead and very slowly bring your head down and then bring your head back and rest. You pause between each movement. Now, see if you can go slowly enough that you can feel. How do you organize yourself to even lift your head? Parts of yourself, you'll find, press into the floor. And as the right side of your chest presses to the floor, you feel you're able to organize your head to bring it down. Feel what happens first. What do you do? Of course, unconsciously, but you can feel it. And now, as you bring your head down, remember, you exhale, you feel where you can do less, where you can soften your chest. Where you can relax your abdomen. How you can help yourself with your left hand standing on the floor. How you can reduce any struggle, any trying. Maybe you find that you're using muscles in your legs that you don't need to. And now bring your attention, as we did on the other side, to feeling how your upper back is getting round. You feel that? Your upper back is getting round. And then you come back and rest. And of course, as behind, so it is in front. Remember, we talked last week a little about that idea of counterbalancing that happens, so that as some part of ourselves goes backwards, there's also a part of ourselves going forward. So feel that as your back gets round, your chest gets smaller. And now, stick your tongue out as you bring your head down softly, easily, without any notion of trying to achieve something. Slowly stick out your tongue and take the tip of your tongue toward your left knee. Just what's easy. Always feeling where you can reduce your effort. And now do the same movement, the same intention of moving your head, but take your tongue towards your nose and feel how it just completely disrupts the movement of bringing your head down. You feel that? Your neck is not available in the same way. And that movement of your tongue affects your back, your spine, all the way down to your lower back. And now rest your head on your arm. You'll find that in every lesson, becoming better organized means finding ease, finding comfort, that ease and comfort is directly linked to the reduction in effort. And for some of you, having your hand stand on the floor is essential, because if your hand is not standing on the floor, your back has to work much, much harder. We want to reduce the effort necessary. All right, now slowly lift your entire leg. The shape stays the same, and you bring your knee a little bit toward your head, just softly. So you're lying on your side. You're neither rolled forward nor backwards. You're on your side. Just what's easy. You rest. It's not continuous. You bring the knee up and you rest a moment. And you'll see that this resting between the movements advantages the improvement, advantages the ability of your brain to learn and your ability to sense and feel. And your ability to sense and feel is the driver of the learning. It's the means whereby, it's what's mediating your learning. Not the movement, but the way that you're sensing yourself and giving up at the same time. You're not trying to get somewhere. We're actually doing the opposite. We're giving up in the moment of doing. And see if you can feel that even though you're not thinking about doing anything with your head, that your head, your chin is being pulled down a little. Your neck is getting a little round just from bringing your knee up. Slowly, not aggressively. It's not something to hold. There's no reason to hold the leg up. You're wanting to make things easier. And for some of us, we've been so divorced from our sensations, from perceiving ourselves. We're so divorced from doing what's easy that even though I'm encouraging you to only do what's easy, maybe you're still driving the thing to try and pull the knee all the way to your head. All right, rest for a moment. Again, your left hand is standing on the floor. And now very slowly bring your head down and your knee up. Your head down and your knee up. Just do both of those movements together, and then you take them back and you rest a moment. A complete rest. and see if you can allow your back to round in relationship to those two movements. But it's one person, so maybe it's all just one movement. And you'll see that if you just do what's easy, you find, oh, bringing my head down makes my leg feel a little lighter. And bringing my leg up, well, oddly enough, makes my head feel a little lighter. It's very interesting. Good. Please stop. And please lie on your back. And just appreciate how quickly the change happens. It's a marvel. It really is. We spent 10 minutes on our side, and now you're lying on your back, and you can feel that there's been not a specific change, but a general change. The whole entire left side of yourself is lying differently. And now please lie on your left side, your left ear on your left arm, your knees drawn up, your right hand standing. And now slowly, just slowly, you lift your head a tiny bit away from your arm, and you bring the back of your head backwards. You bring your head back in such a way that your chin comes away from your throat this time. And then you rest your head. If you think of the head making an arc of movement in space, it's the same movement, but in the opposite direction. If you imagine a point on the top of your head and how that point on the top of your head turns neither right nor left, but just goes back. And your neck arches, doesn't it? There's so many interesting things that happen. For example, see if you can feel that each time you take your head backwards, the back of your neck gets shorter and the front of your neck gets longer. You feel that? The back of your neck gets shorter. The muscles of the back of your neck are contracting, but the muscles of the front of your neck are lengthening. And you'll find that if you allow your mouth to open as you take your head back, allow your mouth to open widely, well, it gets a little easier. And if you move your attention to your chest, you find, oh, my breastbone, my sternum, it moves a little forward when I take my head back. And then you feel, oh yes, and the same, my stomach goes a little forward. Very nice. Rest your head. And now lift your right leg away from your left leg just a little bit and take your right leg backwards. Just a small amount, as if you're the swinging motion of your leg backwards. Your foot is moving backwards. And then you come back and you rest. But again, you can see in your mind's eye, oh, this is the opposite movement of bringing the leg up. And now as you do that, see if you can allow your abdomen to move forward, and you'll see that that will help your leg to get lighter. If you can allow your abdomen to come forward, and that the distance between your pubic bone, that place in front where the right and left sides of your pelvis join together, that the distance of your pubic bone from your sternum, your breastbone, gets very long, because your back muscles are able to effectively work and help you to move your leg back lightly, easily. And now, slowly, go ahead and bring your head backwards as you bring your leg backwards. Only what's easy. And rather than thinking, how much is my leg going backwards? See if you can feel that general arching, shortening, you could say, that's happening in your back. And that the front of you is getting long. Maybe try opening your mouth once or twice and feel, there's something about opening your mouth that lets your back of your head go a little closer to your right foot. Beautiful. Please stop and lie on your back. And just again, appreciate just sensorially how something is different on the right side of yourself compared to the left side of yourself. Maybe one leg feels longer or shorter. So it just shows you, when we lie on our back, and much of ourself is not lying flush to the floor, not lying in contact with the floor, that gives us the ability to see where we're unable to relax ourselves. It's our musculature that's working that keeps us from lying more fully on the floor. And you can feel now, as that movement forward and back has become more coordinated, more harmonious, you could say. Feel. It's a nice feeling. And lie on your right side. Your right ear on your right arm. Your left forearm perpendicular to the floor, your fingers more or less pointed upwards. And now go ahead and begin to slowly begin to take your head back without turning at all right or left. Your nose doesn't go more towards the ceiling or the floor. And just simple. Nothing that's uncomfortable in the slightest bit. If what's comfortable is just nodding your head a little bit, that's absolutely fine. You need to start at your beginning, and your beginning is determined by your sensation of yourself, not by what you think you should do or you used to be able to do. just today, what is not just comfortable, maybe pleasurable, easy. Feel how your chin comes away from your throat. You can lift your chin. Maybe you find that if you look up with your eyes, upwards with your eyes, it's a little easier than if you look down with your eyes. Some of us are so accustomed to looking down with our eyes that even when it's not required, even when we're resting, we're looking down with our eyes because we're so habituated to it. And you find here, if you just make the gesture of looking up, suddenly your head becomes lighter. And now see if you can do it in such a way that you allow your lower abdomen to go forward. And feel how your chest lifts up a little bit, doesn't it? Rest for a moment. As we said earlier, contained in Feldenkrais's lessons is an enormous amount of optimism. Optimism about you, about your brain, about your capacity to improve. And the lessons are constructed in such a way as to make this learning easy, accessible. And now slowly lift your left leg and take your left leg backwards. Think of your foot, think of your left foot going back towards the wall behind you. So the height of your leg from the floor, the distance of your left leg from the floor doesn't change. Your leg is parallel to the floor. It's not tilted toward the floor. And now see, again, can you allow your abdomen to go forward? And now think of the distance between where you imagine. I'm not asking you to be absolutely correct in any way. We're not interested with correct, but just imagine where you think your pubic bone is. It's probably down a little further than you think. And think of how your pubic bone is going down and back, and that the distance between your pubic bone and your breastbone or sternum is getting very long. If you were to think of that distance when we were bringing the leg up and our head down, well, then that distance was getting shorter. Now it's getting long. Good. Rest a moment. And now put those two movements together. Remaining on your side, not rolling forward, not rolling back. And still your hand is standing. Take your head back and your left foot back, as if you were taking the top of your head towards your arch of your left foot and the arch of your left foot toward the top of your head. And in order to do that, in order to do that, you have to allow your spine to bend. And so just go slowly. Beautiful. All right. Please rest on your back. Just observe your feeling of yourself. Lie on your left side, as we've been doing. Now, my challenge for you is that you will not try to achieve at all, but to just very simply see if you can alternate between taking your head back and your leg back, and then taking your knee towards your forehead and your forehead down towards your knee. So you take the two kind of motifs that we've done and you bring them together and you alternate bending so that the middle of your spine goes forward and then the middle of your spine goes backwards. It goes backwards, ironically, when you round. And then when you arch your back and you bring your head towards your foot and your foot towards your head, the middle of your back goes forward. But you have to relax your abdomen. Maybe you're still holding, maybe somebody told you to hold your abdomen tight. See if you can let go. You'll see, letting go in your abdomen allows your back to work beautifully, naturally, organically, nicely. All right, rest for a moment. And now, without doing hardly anything, see if you can move your attention to the inside of yourself and see if you can find the point where you imagine your tailbone is, your coccyx. Of course, it has to be in your imagination, but see if you can go down where you think your tailbone is. And now I'd like you to think from inside. So it's nothing that anybody can see if they're observing you. You think of moving from the inside of yourself, moving your tailbone a little bit down and back. So it's a very small movement. You're in no need of actually mobilizing yourself muscularly. Then you rest for a moment and you do that again. From the inside of yourself, you think of your tailbone moving down and back. Down meaning toward the wall below you, back meaning toward the wall behind you. And now as you do that, you can allow your pelvis to tilt and allow your lower back to arch. It's subtle, but you can feel it. And now, slowly, as you do that, bring the back of your head back. But it's a small movement of your head, a small movement of your head, as if the top of your head was moving a little bit away from your spine. Your eyes are closed, and you can feel that your tailbone is moving away from the top of your head, and that the top of your head is moving away from your tailbone. That's all. No need to mobilize yourself. You just relax your stomach. All right, please lie on your back. Observe the right side of yourself as it lies on the floor compared to the left side of yourself. Please lie on your right side. Stand your left hand and now very slowly put the two movements that we've been doing together, just easily, simply. You move your leg back and take your head back, and then you swing your knee forward and you take your head down. So your forehead comes towards your knee and your knee comes towards your forehead. And then when your leg goes back, the back of your head goes back. Just what's easy for you. Now, who knows? You may have been taught this or that thing to do, that this is the correct way to move, or this is the correct way to stand. And we're trying to do something different here, which is to not tell you this is correct and this is wrong, to not correct you at all, but for you to be able to sense and feel yourself in such a way that you know the difference. So you go ahead and take your head down when you take your leg back. In other words, do the opposite of what we've been doing. Take your head down when you take your leg back and feel, ooh, that changes the feeling of taking your leg back. You can't take your leg back as easily. Why is the leg heavier if you take your head down? And when you take your head back, take your knee up. You feel that you don't have access to that beautiful, natural mobility in your spine. It's more of a segmental accomplishment. Now, do what we've been doing. Take your leg back and your head back, and take your head down and take your knee up. Rest for a moment. And now slowly bring your attention inwardly down towards your tailbone. And please think from the inside of yourself. From the inside of yourself, you're going to lengthen your tailbone down away from your head and back. You can feel that your whole pelvis does something. Slowly, think of your tailbone going down and back, sliding, and allow your lower back to arch as you do that, and your stomach to relax. And now this time, as you do that, just think of the top of your head as moving up a little bit. It's small, it's tiny. It's so small and tiny, nobody in the room would see it. But you can feel that from the inside, you're lengthening your head a tiny bit up as you lengthen from the inside your tailbone down and back. Your stomach relaxes. Then your chin comes a little bit away from your throat. But still, not because you need to deliberately move your chin. Not at all. It's that movement of the chin is synergistic with that movement of your tailbone. All right, please stop and lie on your back. Just observe your contact with the floor. And the movement of your lower abdomen. And now slowly bend one leg and then the other, just slowly. And tilt your knees to the right and slowly roll to your right side and come to sitting and slowly come to standing. But take your time. And then when you come to standing, just observe your feeling of yourself. Not of anything in particular, of yourself. See if you can relax your abdomen. Feel the top of your head. And think of the distance from the top of your head to your tailbone. Would you say that your chin is a little higher than usual, or the front of your chest feels a little wider than usual? And what about the back of your head? Is the back of your head a little more back than usual? Is your nervous system, yourself, your whole self, finding a neutral position that's different from before the lesson, that's more balanced. And you'll see now, walk around and feel if there's a lightness in your legs and in your hip joints, a simplicity. And just use this particular way of paying attention to yourself that really is a learned skill. We're not necessarily born with the skill of understanding how to sense and feel ourselves. It's something that we're not taught. But now, if you sense and feel yourself as you walk, you'll feel, maybe I can let go in my shoulders or my stomach. That unnecessary effort that got linked to standing and walking, it's not really necessary. In fact, you know what? It's actually interfering with easy, simple movement in walking and standing. All right. Thank you very much. Cheers. And forward and up.